For those who are keen observers of professional hockey will know that the Las Vegas Golden Knights had its expansion draft. And so they filled their roster with a number of, I think, somewhat talented players, and had to make side deals so that teams who were given the option to give up one of their players was given, in turn, draft picks in order to alleviate that. And so George McPhee, the general manager of the team, had over a year to plan and prepare for his team. Now, speaking of teams, God had eternity to prepare his team. And sometimes I wonder, what kind of team did he really want to put in place? Not necessarily the best or the most equipped, but the ones who were chosen to in turn be equipped and to equip the saints. And today we celebrate the pillars of our faith, Peter and Paul, that by virtue of our, as we will soon proclaim in the Apostles' Creed, we believe in the faith passed on to us by the apostles. And so when we really take a step back and appreciate the lives that Peter and Paul led, I think it's a head scratcher. Now, I had an experience of head scratching in terms of God's team when I was in the seminary. I was at Mount Angel in about 2002. And so I was in the cafeteria eating, and I looked up and I saw the motley crew of individuals. Some who had been married before, some who were just out of high school, those from Samoa, from Vietnam, the Philippines, Canada, young and old, rich, poor, and I began almost to laugh. I thought, Lord, you are calling this motley crew to serve in your church, to serve as your eternal priests. I kind of think, okay, this is not necessarily the team I would want to bring together. But I think that the Lord ultimately chooses those who follow him, especially Peter and Paul, because of their humility. And I think one is truly humbled when one encounters great sin and is partaken of that. I mean, Paul, the great persecutor of the faith, becomes his greatest preacher. And so much of what we have in terms of the New Testament writings comes as a result of that. That he had this impersonal encounter with the Lord on the road to Damascus, in which he claims that he saw a light and heard a voice, and his life was transformed. Here we encounter Peter, who by virtue of faith acknowledges Jesus as the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Not just a military leader, not just as a great philosopher, but the Son of God, the one who takes away the sins of the world. And here he will deny our Lord 3 times. Here, the one with the keys to the kingdom will deny our Lord. And yet by virtue of being humbled, especially John 21, in which Jesus tells Peter 3 times, he asks him, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? And then he will say to Jesus, or he'll say to Peter, someone will take a rope around your waist and take you where you do not want to go, but come and follow me. And subsequently, the legacy of both Peter and Paul as a result of being chosen and therefore equipped is remarkable for us by virtue of their faith. And I think even if you look at some other great characters of the Gospels, Mary Magdalene, St. Matthew, as sinners themselves, and yet Mary Magdalene was the first to acknowledge Christ risen from the dead. And it was Matthew who, as a tax collector, welcomed people to celebrate with our Lord as a result of his conversion, his personal encounter with the Lord, to encounter his profound mercy. And what a legacy. I think there's the old adage that every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. And so each one of us is in turn called to build up the kingdom of our Lord in humility. In that we encounter the Lord profoundly, personally, whether by virtue of baptism or even later on in life when we have to make maybe an adult statement of faith. It's because we are humbled. We are humbled by virtue of our sinfulness, our need for the Lord, and yet he comes to us. Even Paul in 2 Corinthians will speak about, we hold this treasure in earthen vessels. And Paul again speaks about, it is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me, who loved me and gave himself up for me. And this is what enabled Peter and Paul to proclaim the good news in new territories, who had never encountered the Lord, to the point where they even went to the Gentiles, and they were shocked at that. But the Lord has a plan. And so he forms a team. And not necessarily those that are necessarily the most talented, but the most humbled, I think, are able to receive the great mercy of God, and then in turn to share it with others. And so for those who are hockey fans, and maybe think about, okay, what kind of team would I like to put together? Well, we want the most talented in order to choose them. But I think, no, the Lord chooses the humble in order to equip them. It's that the Lord makes His power show through in weakness. And what an antithesis of our modern culture. And so let us appreciate our weakness, our frailty, because it's only the frail who can receive the Lord's profound mercy and in turn be strengthened. And so let's look to Peter and Paul as those who were humbled in the sight of our Lord, but in turn be powerful to bring the powerful message of our Lord to the places in the world that need to encounter it. And let's in turn do the same.